Let's get started. So thanks for joining. I think that we saw a lot of people actually signing up for this, and I guess that the reasons are quite obvious. Many of us are basically starting to work on a situation that we're trying to learn how to cope with it, and so we gathered here some tips and information that hopefully will help all of us be better. I just want to say that if you have any comments, questions, points that you want to talk during the sessions, use the Q&A, and we will have some time at the end to review these points. So let's get started. First of all, who am I? I'm guessing that many of you might not know me, but I'm basically Joel. I'm PractiTest Chief Solution Architect. I'm also its QA manager. And I have been in testing for a long time. I started basically as a tester back in college and stayed because I liked it. And since then, I've been leading teams, leading departments, working as a consultant as well. And for the last number of years, I've been in PractiTest in the role of solution architect, basically working with our customers, with our end users to try to understand how they work, how to function better, bringing those ideas back into the team, and basically also managing our QA department that it's composed of some testers and a lot of our developers. And it's actually pretty fun stuff. One of the things that I do like about my job is that being a testing company, we get to do quite a lot of other testing stuff, many of that related to the community. One of them is a testing podcast that I have with my friend Rob Lambert called Testing One-on-One, and you can go ahead and check it out. It's pretty cool. But we also do a number of social, let's say, community events. The online testing conference. Some conferences are becoming right now online. We actually have been online for the last 4 years. Next one is coming in June. So you can go to onlinetestconf.com and sign up for that, and the state of testing survey that we will be releasing hopefully in about 2 weeks. So just a couple of plugs in there. Last plug, PractiTest are actually sponsoring this webinar. If you don't know the system, go ahead and check it out, especially now. It's a pretty good SaaS QA management system. It's streamlined for functionality. I mean, a lot of people are telling us that unlike other more traditional systems, they are able to work with less fussle and find information better with the system. It's one of the things that I think our customers like the most is the fact that it integrates with virtually anything that you have. If it's bug trackers or automation of many types or platforms for CI/CD, it actually works pretty well with everything like that. We see ourselves more than as a QA tool. We see ourselves as a hub of information, so that's actually pretty nice. And one second, sorry. Oh, we have someone say that it's cool. Oh, nice, thanks. Sorry. And also check our support. We're actually pretty cool at that. But enough of plugs. I think that we are here for a reason. So let's actually get started. So basically, there is this that is happening right now, the coronavirus, COVID-19, regardless how you call it. It hit us by surprise. It came literally out of the blue, and it started getting more and more momentum. And it's making us do stuff like this, more hygienic, maybe a little bit more worried. We have now social distance in our hands, stuff like that. It caused a lot of people around the world to do something really weird and just think that the end of the toilet paper world was actually coming. By the way, there's someone here asking if you see the presentation. Guys, people are seeing the presentation? There's one person here just asking. OK, apparently you can. If you don't see the presentation, let me know. Based on what I see, you should be able to see it. Oh, wait a second. You're not. Some of you are not seeing it. So let's make sure that we share it correctly. And again, let's present it in here. And let's show this. Can you confirm if now you see the presentation? OK, thanks. So as I was mentioning, it got us from here to here, and then people got so much crazy for toilet paper, and for the Lord of me, I don't know why. But one of the things that many of us are seeing are situations like this where our lives are very, very messy and we have our kids at home and it's getting complicated and it's really generating quite a lot of stress. And one of the things, and again, I do get to talk to a lot of people, testers around the world, and this morning was with people in Japan, and yesterday was with people in New Jersey. And regardless where you are, people are really stressed. Those that, again, those that I'm talking with, they have worse. Those that don't, it's even worse. But I'm assuming that if you're here, it's because you are still working as a tester, and it's really stressful. Now, it's sure that the current situation is actually affecting each of us in different ways. It's not simple. And if I look at my situation, and I'm working from home, I have 3 kids at home, and my wife is also working from home. And at the beginning, it's like, okay, wait, what does it mean? How should we even behave? Do I go to the office? Don't I go to the office? I remember when it just got started, I still had to do a trip. It was just in China. I did a trip to the US and I came back, and then it was isolation for 2 weeks. So it's a little bit scary. And then after a while, you just go a little bit berserk and you start saying, hey, what is it going to do? But at the end of the day, you also find yourself stressed because all of a sudden you have quite a lot of stuff in your hands. And again, if you're like me, you will have kids and dogs and some cats that adopted us. And it is becoming stressful, and all of this actually affecting not only our personal lives, but also the way that we work. And it's not only for us, it's also for our team. So as the name of the session is, we are being forced, in a sense, to work directly, but also to cope with a lot of different changes and a lot of different situations. And that is where the stress comes, and that is where we actually need to go ahead and try to do something about it. Wait a second, just checking here more things. I just see that we have Q&As and other parts in here. This is the chat, Q&A. Okay, we'll get to that eventually. And if we think about what can we do on this, what opportunities or what can we have in order to do it, then the answer, if you think about it, becomes simple. And that is that we need to adapt. If there's anything, I'm a geek of history, and I've been reading history for I don't know how long. One of the things that is really fantastic about humans is that we're constantly adapting. World is changing, and we're pretty good at adapting to new situations. And it's not different now. We need to understand that even if this is going to be a temporary situation, temporary, it's going to take a number of months. Some people say maybe less, hopefully, maybe more, hopefully less. But after this, the world's going to be a little bit different as well. So it's better that we adapt. And what we're seeing, or at least when I was doing research for this, is that we need to adapt in a number of ways. Okay, we need to adapt personally, we need to adapt as organizations, we need to cope with different challenges. And what I want to do today is basically go over a number of them. Let's start with that. So if we need to adapt, I think that the first thing that we need to do is basically internal. It's basically about ourselves. Okay, we need to adapt the new ways in which we live and the new ways in which we work. And so here, I think that for those of you who are managers, this is dual because it's both for you and also make sure that your teams are doing that. If your individual contributors is about you, or maybe how you can affect or help your teams on that. But it's definite that we need to adapt the way that we're working. I think that the first thing that we need to do, and this is extremely important, is we need to make sure that everyone knows that we need to reset the expectations that we had. The way that we work today is not the way that we worked last month. Hopefully, we will get better at this, so it's not the way that we will work in 2 weeks, but we need to make sure that everyone sets their expectations. It starts, I think, that from our circle. And if you have a family or partner or something, you need to start by making sure that these people, the closest to us, understand that things have changed. Meaning, this is not a holiday vacation. It's not like, hey, no school, everyone's off, let's see what we're doing. Every one of us has different responsibilities. Every one of us has different tasks. By the way, personally in my house, and we made sure that we organize chores between all of us to make sure that everyone is A, busy, and B, his or she is actually helping. But That is part of the expectations we need to set. But we also need to set expectations with our coworkers, with our managers, with our employees, with everyone. We need to understand that we are all balancing life, work, chores, and even for those people who used to work from home, and I've heard this from a couple of people in LA, right now this is different because even when you used to work from home, your kids were not at home and you were able to go out. And if you got burned, then you went to Starbucks for a cup of coffee. No, this is different. We're stuck usually in the same place. We cannot go out. Our arrangements have changed. And so people need to understand that you cannot expect from me as a manager or as a tester the same type of work or amount of work that you would have expected a month ago. And it's okay. Most of us, I think that we need to set expectations from ourselves. I think that many of us are trying new things. It's going to be iterative. You will try, you will fail, and then you will try again and fail again until you find stuff that works and stuff that doesn't work. But I think that most of the stress that at least I get, and I hear that from a number of people, is that I feel that I'm not managing this correctly. I'm not doing it. So guys, everyone is basically padding the course as we go along, as close to exploratory testing as it gets on real life. So remember, this is just the name of the game, and we will need to work with that. Once we set up expectations from everyone, we need to understand that, yes, we need a daily routine, and yes, we need a daily schedule. And I read about this a couple of weeks ago, and I actually did it internally. You need to set up a daily routine. It will help you to navigate the day. And one of the biggest things, if you read a lot of these articles, they tell you, get up and dress. Don't stay in your pajamas. It may sound tempting, but no, meaning you are going to work. Get up, dress up, organize your tasks and chores. Make sure that you have a list of things that you want to do. Be organized. Even if you're working from home, actually that becomes an issue because when do you start working? When do you stop working? When we are going to the office, it usually, even if we read some mails before and we did a call or two in the evening, you know when you're home and you know when you're in the office. Right now, it is together, and so we need to schedule stuff, for example, lunchtime, chores, stuff like that. We can schedule them. And remember, it's okay. You won't be able to meet all your schedule. This is only a tentative way. Also, and this I've seen in a number of people in PractiTest, you will need to find a schedule that suits you and that suits also your constraints. If you have small kids, maybe you will be able to work in the morning, and you will be able to work in the evening, but in the afternoon, you won't be able to do it. That's okay. Find the stuff that works for you. Find the stuff that actually makes sense and that you will be able to function around it. And also work with your calendar. Make sure that you set up that time where you're going to be working on your stuff. If you need to do short meetings to catch up with people, put it in the calendar. Make sure that you don't forget it. And make it public. Everyone should be able to see it so that they know when they can contact you, when they can't contact you, when do you have meetings, when you're available. And it makes it easier for everyone. I mean, we'll talk more about communications in a couple of minutes. Location and setup, it's really, really important. And again, if you read any type of articles on this, they will tell you that it usually works best if you set up a workstation. If you have a desk at home, if you have something like that, try not to work from bed. Try not to work in front of the sofa, in front of the TV, because you have too many distractions. Even if you're home alone, it doesn't help because it's too easy just to open the control, okay? Try to have a place that you keep organized and try to avoid distractions as much as possible. If you see this image, actually, this is my desk. And you can see that, yes, we have it here, and I have my keyboard and everything. By the way, if you notice here, I'm actually sharing my home office with my son. He's a 12-year-old, and he actually, during the whole morning, he does homework. So we're sharing it. It's not the best way of working, but it works, and it's important to have it ready. One of the things that is recommended is to have pretty good headphones. If you have sound canceling, make sure you have them. My recommendation is to understand that you will need more than a couple of playlists. For me, for example, when I need some energy, I will go for a heavy 80s rock playlist. Sometimes when I need to calm down, then I will go to a classical playlist. And when I just need to do like deep reading, I will go for gray noise or rain sounds. And even if you don't have a paid service like Spotify, if you go to YouTube, you will be able to find pretty cool playlist like that. And remember, make changes in arrangements once in a while. It's okay to modify where your desk is headed or switch from place to place, but try to work on a place that it feels like work as much as you can. Also, another recommendation, personal recommendation, is to have breaks and to set up a do not disturb sign and virtual sign. So starting with the do not disturb, use it whenever you need concentration. And even if you're working with your peers in the office, know when you're going to be setting a D&D and closing your Slack and instant messaging. It makes it easier for you to work, but also explain it. Tell people, hey, you know what? I'm working right now. I'm doing a concentrated task. I cannot read. Even if you don't have a meeting, make sure people know it. At home, it's a little bit harder. Close the door. Even when you close the door, sometimes it's going to be noise. We will need to learn to cope with that. Also, learn how to schedule breaks. Don't try to overdo it. You do breaks to handle small tasks and not only long tasks and to communicate with people. In my case, I found that I also need to put on breaks in order to do chores at home. For example, I am in charge of lunch. My wife is in charge of dinner, which means that every day at 11:30, I take a 15-minute break regardless of what I'm doing in order to make sure that we will have lunch at 12:30. Okay, so it makes sense. And again, new rules, new accommodations, I feel 100% comfortable when I'm working with the guys at the office to say, hey, I need to take a break. I need to make sure that we will have lunch at 12:30. So they already got used to that. And also, it's important to separate between work and play. Don't try to multitask. I assure you it's a myth. It doesn't exist. I've tried it so many times. And if you're going to be with your kids, be with your kids. If you're going to be doing a chore, be doing that chore. If you're going to be working, be working. It's better than not to do any of those because you're trying to basically juggle all of them together. So we talked about the personal changes, and this is more like advice and stuff that I'm trying to tell also my employees how to do. But that's not enough. As organizations and as working communities, we need to also make changes, maybe small changes, maybe bigger changes, to the ways that we are working and coordinating our work. The first change that I think it's needed is to over-communicate. Okay, it's really, really important. Try not to abuse it, but if you're going to be basically making a mistake, I will try to make it on the side of over-communicating. It can start by having multiple channels to communicate with. Okay, in our case, for example, we do email. We've been doing email, I don't know, all the time. But we've always were using Zoom for working with our customers. Right now, we're using Zoom all the time to talk internally. Also, try to have a communication channel being that Slack or Microsoft Teams or something like that. Again, work with Slack and it works wonders. And even if that doesn't work, then make sure that you have WhatsApp also working in there. And you will end up using a number of different channels. For example, we always try email. It's like for the smaller stuff. Slack we will use obviously for offline communication, but sometimes you're in the middle of offline communication, and even Slack, they have this functionality to right now do calls and do video conferences, so we do that. Unless we have a longer video conference, then we will go for a Zoom video conference. And it's better to have multiple channels than not to be able to find people in those. And there's also something pretty amazing. There's this weird device called a phone. Sometimes you can simply use it in order to call someone, and they will answer the phone and you will be able to talk. So that's also cool, even with people in the office. Also, talking about over-communication, it goes into not assuming that people know what you're doing. There's a lot of communication that happens informally. There's a lot of ways that when we're in the office, someone will know that, oh, I'm talking to that customer because they overheard me, or because I speak loudly, or because that's just the way it is. When you're working remotely, people might not know it. So try to make sure that people know what you're doing. And if there's something important, make sure that you actually publish it in those channels. So for us, it's even if we have our support chat where we talk to our customers, whenever there is a chat that it's important that we make sure that we also publish that in our internal support Slack channel so that people know about it. Okay, so over communicate. At the end, it will pay off for that. but also try to find the correct balance, because if you're going to be using every channel to do everything there, then people will stop actually using those. So again, double-edged sword, important to make sure that everyone's coordinated, but also try not to abuse with that. And again, my advice at the beginning, if you're going to be doing something bad, try to go on the other side and try to over-communicate instead of under-communicating. It's amazing how much video helps. I read about this some years ago. As part of my job in PractiTest, I'm also in charge of the customer success team in PractiTest. And one of the things that people were saying all the time is that even when you're talking to a customer that you haven't met, having that picture of the person that you're talking with, and hopefully if it's a video, it's better, makes the call easier to handle. They say that it might be related to facial expressions and body language. Maybe it is. Maybe it is because they know that you're basically engaged with them, because they see you not working on emails or not, I don't know, playing Scrabble with someone else at the same time. But it works. So try to use as much as you can video conferencing internally. For us, it's a lot of group video meetings. We have twice a week updates of the whole company. We have, whenever I have a meeting, even with one of my coworkers, then we try to do it video as well, unless we're going to be working on a document, then that doesn't really make sense. And we're even starting to do virtual social events. We have a weekly happy hour where at least some of us, they come with beers. And so we sit down and it actually works. Also try to make sure that you set video as the default. And for some people, it might be a little, I don't know, uncomfortable at first, but it's just like in the office. In the office, you go, you knock on someone's door and you talk to them. It makes it more personal, okay? If it's gonna be a 2-second call, no need. But if it's gonna be a 5-minute chat, then it's better to do it like that. Also, it's important to continue setting up collaborative tasks. A lot of people are saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to try as much as possible not to do complex tasks that require collaboration. You shouldn't. Again, we don't know how long it's going to take. You cannot push your work for September or November. There are ways that you can do it. Try not to avoid it. If you need to pair junior and experienced employees in order to do it together, do it. If you need to have a formalized process for managing stuff, put it in place. Obviously, you can use PractiTest for test management, another plug, but you don't need to. Meaning, even Google Office is great with their collaborative tools, and there are countless of other tools that will help you. Remember, you will need to put more strict, maybe online review processes. It will be better if you encourage people to have meetings and not to work so much on documents. But you should not avoid setting up collaborative tasks or complex tasks, because this is just the way we work. Okay, this is the new reality. You don't know how long it's going to take. And if you start putting off stuff, then first of all, you're harming your business in a sense, obviously. But you're also going to be delaying the inevitable. And it's better just to start with it and understand how it actually works. Also try to generate as much visibility as possible. If we were talking about over-communicating, try to do also over-visibility. There's a saying that says that visibility creates tranquility. And that means that as much as possible, try to put dashboards for people with information. Try to display all news, good news and bad news. Explain why it's happening. Meaning, I've heard of a number of customers of ours that are saying, hey, you know what, yes, we have basically dashboards that are showing how the business is slowing. And it actually helps because people understand that, yes, it's slowing because the economy apparently is going to slow down, but we're not on a free fall. People know that it works. People are actually going to be able to understand how it works. And make sure that information is readily available. It's better to have good information than to have hearsay going here and going there and basically causing more harm than good. And again, all of these are basically advice on stuff that needs to happen. Still, with all of this advice, we know that we will run into issues. We will run into challenges. We will run into questions. And what I did was that I basically went over to a number of colleagues and friends, and we tried to put together a list of let's say, common challenges that most of us are experiencing right now, and approaches on how to overcome them, or at least on how to approach this. So, by the way, if you have additional challenges, we'll be able to just review them at the end. But let's start with the one that we collected before. So the first one is relatively simple: scheduling constraints, scheduling conflicts. Basically, it's to remember that this is not like office and non-office. We're not alone. We have kids, we have partners, we have families. Some of us even have our parents that we're taking care of them. And that is generating quite a lot of mess in where we are, okay? So we need to try to understand, how do we come up with that? So some of us will have limited time to work. We won't be able maybe to work only 6 hours or 4 hours a day, and other days will be better than others. For some of us, it's easier to work at night when it's quiet. For some of us, it's easier to wake up at 4 a.m. and do 4 hours of work before anyone even connects. We need to understand that this is changing. So basically what we need to try and do is to be accommodating as much as possible. Understand that if it's about the amount of time that you will have because we're transitioning, this is not the end of the world. It will take time to stabilize. So don't try to judge everything by the way that it's happening today. Also make sure to differentiate what needs to happen online versus what needs to happen offline. As much as possible, try to measure on deliverables and not on the amount of time that you're online between 9 and 5. Meaning, it's to understand that not everyone's schedule will be the same, and to realize that we will need basically to come up with better ways of working together in general. Okay, it's actually pretty easy once you get into that. Okay, and understand that all of us are together. And by the way, one of the things that is pretty funny is that I didn't make it this time, I was about to say, but if you hear noise on the background, remember I have 3 kids, my wife, a dog, and they're teenagers, so they will surely fight. And when you say that to other people, usually they say, hey, don't worry, it's the same around here. Okay, so most of us are on the same ship, so you shouldn't be afraid of that. Another very big issue that I was talking with some colleagues is, okay, so how do we give actually hard or advanced tasks to junior staff? There are some tasks that will require experience, and these guys don't have it, and they're going to be working from home, and I don't even know how to start passing that complex task to that junior person, especially if it's going to be harder to train them. Okay, how do we go about doing stuff? So again, there are a number of things that you can do for that. The first of them is try to generate a backlog that it's balanced, and your workload that is balanced. Meaning, if you will need to make sure that junior people have stuff they can do in order to continue advancing, then you will need to give them maybe less complex tasks. But also, if that's not the case, one of the things that I've been doing with my teams right now, we are setting a lot of remote pairing and a lot of remote mentoring tasks. So yes, it takes a little bit more time, but it also really motivates people, especially if you're stuck, then you're working with another person and it's better, okay? Also for the mentor, it gives them more motivation. Not only the mentee, but also the mentor. And one of the things that we're doing quite a lot, it's basically scheduling additional reviews. So one of the things that we do in PractiTest, we're giving more and more testing tasks to our developers. We find that it works for everyone. Our developers are working faster right now. They're learning how the system works. On the other hand, if you give a testing task to a developer, at the beginning, they will fumble. They will not know everything to test, and they won't find all the scenarios. And I find myself doing a lot of additional reviews. And that's okay. It's okay for them. It's okay for me. It takes a little bit more time. It doesn't need to be an hour-long reviews. And I'm sure it's already starting to pay off. And I'm sure that in the end, it will be better for us. But remember, you will need to continue training people. You will need to continue making sure that that junior staff becomes more advanced and able to do everything. Something that I thought was only happening to me, and I was really amazed when someone else on Twitter was actually publishing about that. And it's calendars meetings abuse. So your calendar gets absolutely overcrowded with meetings. It's hard for you to find time to do work between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. And people just abuse and clog your meetings all day long. Now, this is my calendar for last week. I'm not kidding. You can see, yes, I have my lunch with family in the middle. But what was happening was that I had to do a lot of tasks, and here people started putting me all sorts of meetings. And then Thursday came, and it became crazy. And everyone was just setting meetings. I couldn't work. So somewhere around here, I just went over and set up a full day of meetings that says, Joel works only urgent meetings, please. Okay, and I made this public for everyone. And yes, they still put me a meeting here. Yes, they still put me another meeting here. And as I was mentioning before, we did have the happy hour on Friday at 4 p.m. But I had basically to do this because my calendar just was becoming too clogged. And I'm trying to do this right now. I'm not sure how much it will work, but I've tried to tell people, hey, you know what? I'm not going to sign up for a meeting that is longer than 30 minutes. If you need more than 30 minutes, break it down or explain to me why you need it. I'm also starting to box time to do my chores. So as I was telling, we need to review the state of testing survey soon. So I need to review it and go over it and provide comments. So I just close to me a couple hours this week to make sure that I go over it. I'm also being very proactive and maybe even unpolite at times. And if I see a meeting that looks more like something that can be reviewed offline, then I just ask to put it in there. If it's a coordination meeting, let's try to do it on Slack. If it's a review meeting, let's try to do it on Google Docs. I personally need more times to do my work. So if I need to be a little bit more pronounced on it, let it be. I think that we need to understand that I thought it was only my issue, but apparently it's not. So if it's yours as well, try to check how you can actually do it with that. Another thing that is happening, because we are trying to let people define their own work and basically try to work on their own, is poor task prioritization. So at the end of the day, we talked to someone and we realized that a task that was very important, he didn't or she didn't even get to that, and they did other tasks because they thought it was more important. Work is being wasted, and people even get stuck, and because they're at home, then they're not raising flags that they would have done in the office, saying, hey, you know what, I'm stuck, can you please help me on that? Or they do it, but you don't respond fast enough or quick enough, and people don't realize that. So we get very poor task prioritization. And again, we need to understand that visibility is going to be very important in here, especially in the priorities that we have. One of the things that we're doing right now, we've been doing it for the last 2 weeks in each one of my 3 teams, and it works pretty well, is to have daily meetings, very quick, 10 minutes with each one of them. And again, I do it with each one separately. What did we work on yesterday? What are we going to work on today? And what is blocking us? And when you basically are able to communicate all of that, you find that you can tell people, hey, you know what? I didn't hear that you're going to be working on this and that, and it's pretty important. Or you realize that you are blocking someone, how important that is, and you're able to do it. These are the daily stand-ups. A lot of development teams are doing it, have been doing it for a long time. I think that every team can actually get a lot of benefit for stuff like that. Another thing that we're starting to see, and I was amazed because it was relatively quick, at least in my company, we've been at this for 3 weeks, more or less, working remotely. And we're starting to see burnout in people. Burnout basically is when we have too much workload and it just becomes too heavy. It's harder, it's very stressful. I think that one of the most contributing factors is that we are working from home and it's very hard to stop, meaning you're not saying, okay, I'm done, gonna go out, meet a couple friends, have a beer. No, you're basically home and working. And at least in my point, even weekends are not used in order to break the routine and recharge. Either we're doing house chores or making sure the kids don't kill one another, or even working because we have just too much to do. And yes, my desk is just in the room next door, so it makes sense just to continue doing that. And as a manager, what I'm trying to do more and more is to be more in touch with my team on a personal basis, trying to understand how is it going for them, how stressful it is. If I see, and I've actually saw it a couple of times, that people actually were starting to burn out, I told them, hey, you know what? I don't care. I know today's a Tuesday. You're taking the rest of the day off. go ahead and watch Netflix. And again, here I'm amazed because I see all these Facebook people and people who I'm bored and I ran out of Netflix. Guys, I haven't opened Netflix in the last 3 days. And I'm not sure who those people who run out of Netflix are, but I have told a couple of people that I don't care. I don't want to see them online. I want them to relax and take the day off. And if needed, remember, it's okay to seek help. I have been in touch with a friend of mine that I know from a previous job. She is an organizational psychologist and just trying to get tips because I need to understand that the situation is different and I'm not going to have the answers for every means and every question in there. And also, as much as we want to think that, no, it's not going to happen to us, for some people and some teams, we are going to experience a drop in team morale overall. So it's not simple. Yes, some customers are going to stop working with us. Some people are going to see that our company is in more issues than other. Many people are afraid of their incomes because we see the unemployment rates going up, and many of us have mortgages and kids and futures planned, and it's hard for everyone. So there is a drop in morale because as much as it looks right now, the economy is going to continue to slow down. So in here, you need to put remember that as a team manager, you're also the team leader, and you need to put a smiley face, and you need basically to make sure that people understand, yes, it is hard, but it is also a challenge, and there are always ways that at the end of the day, we will get out of this stronger. Be realistic, but be positive. Try to focus again on long-range tasks. Don't start only to doing like, okay, working for the now and that's it. Focus also on long-range objectives, on building people and giving them morale. And as dumb as it sounds, don't make it only about work. And one of the things that we saw is that after we did our first Zoom happy hour, people actually, it felt different. It felt like, yes, it's more like the regular office that we know, and it's more like the kind of task that we'd like to do. So as much as possible, remember, it's also important to schedule remote social events. And by the way, one of my marketing people said that she found a virtual escape room. So we're going to try to do something like that pretty soon again, just to try to find other ways of boosting morale in here. So that is more or less what I had prepared. 1 second, I want to stop this because I saw that, that there were some questions. I just cannot reach my Q&A. So let me just pause my share for a second. 1 second, and I'll try to see if I can reach my Q&A. Oh, now I see it. And now we will go back to presenting so that we can go over questions if you have. Okay, so I see one question here. Which would be the specific challenge of this change for testing teams? I think that out of the ones that we have in here, a lot of the challenges that at least I'm seeing with my testing team, again, drop of morale and burnout, actually, it's basically trivial because it happens with all. I'm seeing in testing teams task prioritization issues, usually because a lot of times you will see that a developer might actually influence a tester saying, hey, it's really important for me that you go ahead and give me feedback on that. And that tester might be overwhelmed on that task, so it's important to basically make sure that people are still prioritizing correctly on the stuff that you have. Another thing that I think that I have been seeing in a number of testing teams, it's about how to, not this one, how to give harder tasks to junior staff. And I was talking actually with a team in Stockholm that they were also doing social distancing, and the issue there were that they were trying to transition people into working more exploratory on the one hand and also more on automation on the other hand. And they were finding it hard in order to do it. And what we were talking with them is that they need to do more mentoring, more training, more online stuff. Yes, it's easier maybe to put everyone in the room and talk about it, but it's not the end of the world if you try to do it remotely. Okay, it will take more time, yes, but we don't really have a choice right now. This is the way that we're working. So it does make more sense to not stop what we're doing right now and continue basically working with what we're doing. So I think that those are very specific for testing teams right now. Another one that I was doubtful whether to put it here or not, it's more on testing teams. How do you manage to get more information to prepare for your testing? And I think that it goes into more over communication. We need to make sure that, and I'm actually making that a request to all of my testers, before you start planning your testing cycles or your testing phases, make sure that you have even a 15-minute session with the developer in charge of that, with the product people in charge of that, to make sure that you get all the feedback on all the inputs. And also, I'm being extremely, let's say, inflexible on making sure that every time that someone does a testing activity, there is going to be a debriefing afterwards. Because a lot of those debriefings used to be informal. A lot of those communications happen on the hallways. And we need to make sure that that's not going to happen anymore. So many times there are no formal channels of communications between development and test. And it's even stranger to see it between product and test. And we need to have them, because we're not going to get that informal communication anymore. Okay, that's actually very important. Any additional questions, any additional points that you want to bring forward, I'll be happy to. In the meantime, as I was requested by my team, we like to get feedback. So wait, where is it? There is a link at the end. Oh, come on. I'm gonna do it the old-fashioned way here. Couple things that you can actually see here. First of all, if you have any points that you want to talk about, anything that you want to send me, this is my personal info. You can actually see it here. Wait, there's something else in here on the chat. Someone entered the question. Oh, now I see it. Okay, I'll get to the question. But in any case, in the meantime, this is my personal info. And we would appreciate it if you can actually go here to bit.ly WNR. It's actually webinar feedback without the vowels. And if you can tell us what you think about it. And there's another question here. Let's actually go into that. The question here is how to handle when your team are all contractors. There are not 40 hours. Should I make any changes because it's always been just about business? Well, when you're working with contractors, and that's a good question, I think that we need to understand that even if we're working with contractors, these contractors' lives have also been gone upside down. So I will be very amazed if even for people who are working with offshoring or outsourcing or contractors, then everything actually is still the same. I don't think that with contractors you need to get to a level of burnout and maybe talking about the realities that much with them, because still, they're not part of your team. But you still need to be sensible about it, and you still need to at least understand that if they need to give you the 8 hours a day because they're working based on a contract, they might not happen at the same amount of time. You need to make sure that you actually have that planned ahead. It's just about making sure that you have realistic expectations of them. The fact that people are contracting, I don't think that other than in a number of areas in China, people have gone back to normal stages. I was under the impression, I'll give you an example. I do work with a number of companies in Japan. And last week they thought that they were going into normalization and people were starting to go to the office. And 3 days ago, they were told that, again, we're going into quarantine as well. And people are working from home again. So the situation is going to change. I think that even for contracting, we need to be a little bit more flexible with that. So do take that into account. There's also a question here, if the recording is going to be available after this. Yes, we are recording, and yes, we will send an email with that. People in the session, not ladies, not gentlemen. We're actually making it gender neutral. additional questions, I will be happy to take them. And again, I'm not sure that I have all the answers, but I'll be happy to also talk about them as well. If there's anything else, again, this is my email. I don't reply quickly to all emails, but I do reply to all of them. So please make sure to send me your emails, your comments, and also to try to feed that form bit.ly, webinar-feedback without any vowels, and just tell us what you think. And again, I'm really, really hoping that you're not extremely stressed. And remember, we will get out of it, meaning we are extremely good at adapting. I'm not sure how it's going to look at the end. I do think that some things will be better after this. We are being reminded that we need to be social. We need to be reminded that we are a group of people and that the world is more fragile than we thought of before. And hopefully it will be for the better. So thank you very much for joining. I hope that you have a great day, great continuing of the week. And we'll be in touch.